I wrote this piece for this festival a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to say that Chan and ERDEM are no longer in prison, which is wonderful news. But I'm going to read this piece as I wrote it then. The trucks were stopped on the border, medical supplies heading into Syria, a present from the Turkish government of Tayyip Erdogan. Bandages, gauze, clamps, sheets, steri-strips, needles, antibiotics. Nothing else. You think there was something else? Mortars, ammunition, grenade launchers in those trucks. If you think this, tell someone, your friends. Mention it to them. Pass on this truth if you know it to be one, as Chan DÜNDAR did and ERDEM Gul. If it is the truth, what harm can come if you simply pass it on to others so that they may know it too? If you are a writer, you might want to write it down, because this is what writers do. I want to tell a story about Dostoevsky that you may know. In 1949, he was arrested with 6 others for sedition and locked in St. Petersburg's toughest prison. 6 months later, he was sentenced to death and with 12 others led out into Semyonov Square to be shot. Hoods were applied, the victims tied to posts as commands went up, prepare to fire. Think of him there, Dostoevsky. None of his great novels written, the vast cathedral that is the brothers Karamazov, nothing perhaps except wispy, fleeting pictures flitting through the back of his mind. All that stuff to say, about to be snuffed out when the miracle occurred, a sound, a drummer with a pardon from the Tsar. A good joke, as it turned out, all planned the day before, enough to put off anyone from passing truths along, you might think, though it didn't stop Dostoevsky. He was a writer, writing down the truth is what writers do. I am a writer, and I tell the truth, or I try to. The truth in my life, the truth in front of me, gets me into trouble. A reader, it's the truth, so offended by a novel I'd written, approached me after a reading, incensed. They held the novel in their hand and screamed at me in front of a large audience. The reader told me my book was disgusting. They rushed forward, hurled the book, bounced off my chest as I stood there, astonished, unable to believe what was happening. I'm just a writer. I wanted to say, I just wrote what I saw in front of me. Lately, things have become a little worse. The sex and swearing in my current novel has disgusted my mother-in-law. The book is about families, how we live now. It's a dark book, and some parents at the school my children attend think I'm attacking them. When I drop my children off, they stare like I'm the devil. I want to tell them, I just think this is the truth. It's my truth. When one parent confronted me to my face, a friend laughed and told me that I was brave. Yes, brave, to write these things, to put them all out there. I tell him, yes, perhaps I would be brave if one of these parents staring daggers at me was the president of Turkey. You can't choose the particular truth you find in front of you. You can only choose what you do about it. Whether you turn your back, no shame in that, or turn towards it, hunting it down, sniffing it out through dark alleyways and across empty wastes of time and space. The scent almost lost, nothing but your desire and passion to keep you heading forward. The truth leads some writers to fame and wealth, others into prison and trials behind closed doors, conducted on the whim of tyrants. And now, another story about Dostoevsky. You won't know this one. When I was 14, I heard the story I just told you about his brush with death. I plucked Crime and Punishment from the forbidding set of leather-bound Russian novels in my house. And when I put it back, finished 2 days later, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. I knew that I needed to be one. And this caused me huge pain, because my callow teenage self reasoned, if I could write, me in my fine English house with my parents who loved me and fed me and kept me safe and warm and paid each weekend for my tennis lessons, what would I write about? I was so jealous of Dostoevsky, men like him who clearly had something to say. I felt empty, as I know many writers do, with the deep suspicion that no person actually existed inside me, that I was hollow, just a blank space. I decided that the only thing I could do was to pretend to exist, leaving traces behind me that people might interpret as the product of a real person. and I could begin with the book I just read. I could go back to the shelf of Russian novels and turn Crime and Punishment upside down, so that the next person to see it, my father, brother perhaps, would pause and see the evidence of me, a small start in my fictional career. But I'd do it, I decided, and I ran back up into the house, inside, to the bookshelf, to practice this tiny deception. But I could not do it, for when I got there, the book was upside down. Were there really weapons in those lorries? Video evidence seems to suggest that there was. Have two writers really spent months in prison awaiting trial for revealing this? Are they really being tried now in private, with no press to witness what was happening to them? Is this really happening in a country so close to us, where even now British families are building sandcastles on the beach? These things are less easy to believe somehow, even though their faces are there on the news, on the web, even if right now they sit wondering about their fate. Chan and ERDEM seem unreal, the truth of them unstable. This instability of truth is the goal of tyrants, and we must do what we can to focus it from outside here and insist on its reality.